you out there are tonight's performers.
Aren't you Tony Sabina? Is it true that you can't be hypnotised to commit murder?
All the risks he took, and he should just go in his sleep.
Superintendent Drummond, acting superintendent while Jack McVitt is away.
She was found drowned in a clay this morning.
Taggart, Black Orchid, next Sunday at 9 on Yorkshire.
Where can you find a car dealer whose technicians are specially trained to look after your car? Where precisely the right equipment is used for the job? Where a menu pricing system cuts out the shock of unexpected repair costs? Where there's access to over 5,000 rigorously inspected high-quality used cars? And where there's such a commitment to customers that they've pioneered a revolutionary refund scheme for new car buyers. Where? Wherever you see this sign.
For all types of insurance, for all kinds of mishaps, you better ring the Royal.
Jump up now and order your free Island of Jersey brochure. Call 0800 33 33 66.
American federal agents warn of the threat that London faces from the yard.
An underground station.
These special early weeks of last year, keeping watch on a crackdown.
Are all yardies really like this?
To me, the yardies are a bunch of cowards. I know the ghetto inside out.
In the ghetto, yardie just means a Jamaican, not necessarily a gangster. There are drugs, acid attacks and murders, but there's also the spirit of hope. Network First, The Yardies, Tuesday at 10:40 on Yorkshire.
A high-speed police chase through city streets. But how can these pursuits be made safer? 3D, Thursday at 7:30 on Yorkshire.
The South Bank Show in 10 minutes examines the design of flags from Ghana. Now it's news time with Nicholas Owen.
Good evening, welcome to ITN. Tonight's headlines. A boy of 7 and his teenage babysitter are found stabbed to death. Michael Foot and the KGB, he denies he was an agent. And how Manchester United booked a place in the FA Cup quarter-finals. Detectives in West Yorkshire said tonight they were horrified at the apparently motiveless murders of a 7-year-old boy and his teenage babysitter. Jonathan Copley's mother returned to her home in Bradford after a party to find his body lying near that of 15-year-old Rachel Rooney. Both had been stabbed to death in what police say was a frenzied attack.
It had been a happy night out, but when Denise Copley returned home shortly after midnight, she was confronted by a scene police describe as one of total carnage. Her 7-year-old son Jonathan lay slumped upstairs near to the teenage family friend who'd come to babysit. They'd both been repeatedly stabbed in a frenzied attack. Jonathan was a shy lad who was never in trouble. Normally his sister would babysit, but on this occasion her friend stepped in.
Both the victims have suffered a frenzied and sustained attack with a knife. The scene is particularly horrific, and one can hardly imagine how the people feel who found these two young people.
A neighbour spoke of the moment Jonathan's mother and sister made their horrifying discovery.
There was this girl screaming her head off. She was falling down. The neighbour on the other side, the lady on the other side of this house, was trying to keep her up. And I saw the mother as well. The mother was clenching her fist like that, ran to the telephone to call the police, I presume.
Throughout the day, extra officers were drafted in to help with the double murder inquiry, but so far detectives admit they have few clues. Police say they don't know if the boy and girl knew their attacker or if it was a purely random killing, but they say it was a motiveless attack and they're warning that the killer could strike again. Richard Cook, ITN, Bradford.
The former Labour leader Michael Foot has denied allegations in today's Sunday Times that he was a KGB agent of influence. The paper says the claims were made by Viktor Kubakin, a retired KGB officer. However, in Moscow today, he told ITN he'd been misquoted in the article. The Sunday Times insists its story is correct.
Michael Foot,
refusing to add to a short statement in which he denies he was recruited as a Soviet agent in the 60s and that as editor of the left-wing newspaper Tribune, he accepted cash payments from the KGB.
Well, I'm not going to say anything further. If you read The Observer, print what's in The Observer, you'll be printing the truth.
In the Observer statement, he says his position as an MP would have naturally brought him into contact with Soviet diplomats, but he maintains, as far as I know, I've never met the KGB in my life. Certainly they didn't mention the matter if they were. One of the two former KGB colonels behind the allegations is Oleg Gordievsky, a double agent who worked for British intelligence. His defection 10 years ago was a major coup for MI6. He stands by the Sunday Times story extracted from his book, which the paper starts serializing next week.
For 11 years, I risked my life in order to help the security of Britain and generally of the West. Why should I now tell lies? What purpose? Well, should I tell now lies after all that?
To sell
and
a
of
book.
course, doesn't sell a book. If I wanted to tell lies, I would have invented much more interesting stories.
The Sunday Times claims MI6 knew back in 1977 about Michael Foot's alleged contacts with Soviet spies. The editor insists today's front-page story is correct, with the journalist who wrote the article maintaining he accurately reported conversations with informants.
We're not making any allegations about whether Mr. Foot knew that a particular person was a KGB agent and whether he knowingly acted as a spy. We are saying that there is very strong evidence that he did meet KGB agents and that those agents sought to influence him in certain ways.
Friends of Michael Foot have swiftly rallied to his defence, heralding him as a Democrat and patriot. But as his days of influence in the Labour Party are long over, today's allegations will have much less impact than other alleged East-West espionage intrigues.
In the Russian capital, a figure from the Cold War past has stepped forward to deny remarks attributed to him in today's Sunday Times story about Michael Foot. A former lieutenant colonel in the KGB and acting chief of the KGB's London station in the 1970s, Viktor Kubekin was said by the Sunday Times to have known that Michael Foot received clandestine payments from Soviet intelligence. Tonight, Kubekin came to the ITN office to say that he had been misquoted.
Any claim that I supported or substantiated or in any way referred to Michael Foot as being connected with the Soviet intelligence at the time were absolutely wrong.
Along with the KGB defector Oleg Gordievsky, Kubekin was named by the Sunday Times as a principal source for their story. But tonight, Kubekin said that he knew of no evidence that Michael Foot had ever been an agent of influence.
I did not know any officer who worked with him as on behalf of the intelligence, and I didn't know of any clandestine or whatever activity or any payment or whatever it is concerning life.
In your opinion, was he any sort of agent of the KGB?
No. No, to my opinion, not.
Clouding this whole affair is a feud between former KGB men. On the one hand, the defector Oleg Gordievsky, who now seems intent on making a financial profit from his knowledge. On the other hand, the retired KGB men here in Moscow, who frankly detest Mr. Gordievsky so much that they are unlikely to support anything he says. In these circumstances, the truth about the Foot affair, if indeed there is any substance to it at all, may prove difficult to pin down. Julian Mannion, ITN, Moscow.
Here, the government is facing a new by-election crisis after the death of the Tory MP Sir Nicholas Fairbairn. The 61-year-old MP for Perth and Kinross died after a long illness. Sir Nicholas held the seat with a majority of just over 2,000 and was one of only 11 Tory MPs in Scotland. The Scottish National Party are strong contenders to win the seat. The leader of the Ulster Unionists, James Molyneux, says his party is preparing its own framework document on future peace in Northern Ireland. In the next few days, the British and Irish governments are expected to release the official document at a summit likely to be held in Northern Ireland and due to be attended by the Prime Minister. And Sir Leon Britton, the Vice President of the European Commission, today insisted there were no plans to create a European superstate. He urged Tory Eurosceptics to stop carping and criticising or risk weakening Britain's negotiating position within the European Union. 20 protesters have been arrested during a demonstration against the Criminal Justice Act at Windsor Castle. 500 people took part in a march through the castle grounds. They were also campaigning for the right to use a towpath on the estate.
The trouble flared at the end of what had been a mainly peaceful march as police tried to move demonstrators towards waiting buses. Officers made a number of arrests. Earlier, around 500 protesters had been given special permission to march along a towpath next to the River Thames inside the grounds of Windsor Castle. The path was closed to the public in 1860 and the Queen doesn't want it reopened. This is what the demonstration was about, as the Criminal Justice Act forbids trespass on private land. Despite a large police presence, some managed to break away from the main group and make their way towards the castle where the Queen was in residence. However, they were spotted and quickly rounded up. This was the first time Crown property had been the target of a demonstration against the Criminal Justice Act.
Football, Manchester United are the new favourites to win the FA Cup after victory over Leeds at Old Trafford. They're through to the quarter-finals, as are Newcastle, who knocked out Manchester City. Liverpool and Wimbledon must replay for a place in the last 8.
Thrilling football, not terrace trouble, thankfully took centre stage this afternoon. Manchester United 2 goals up over Cross Pennines rivals Leeds within 5 minutes. The red machine misfired for a moment in the second half, Leeds pulling the score back to 2-1. But a late Manchester goal from Mark Hughes secured his side a quarter-final place against QPR. He keeps scoring, despite rumours his United days are numbered with the arrival of record signing Andy Cole. Cole's former club Newcastle had a goalkeeper's nightmare to thank for their first score against Manchester City. A corner at the other end led to another keeper's blunder, however, City levelling the score at 1-1. But the cup now looks to be Newcastle's only silverware chance this season, and a second goal from Gillespie gave the Magpies an eventual 3-1 victory and an away visit to Everton in the next round. In today's other game, Liverpool drew 1-1 against Wimbledon. The replay winners face Spurs or Southampton. Watford or Crystal Palace will play Wolves in the last quarter-final.
That's it from the weekend news team here at ITN. Good night.
And to put our weather in context straight away for tomorrow, what we have is a front on the scene with rain attached to it. And then during the course of the day, that weather front pushes northwards slowly but surely, giving off rain for most of England and Wales. I'm afraid it's a very damp start to our week. Back to tonight, though, and the showers continue in the far north and west, falling as snow on the higher ground in Scotland, even blizzards here with the high winds, a frost as well, mild temperatures further south, and mainly dry. Starting with the northern part of the country as we go into tomorrow, once again watch out for that snow on the higher ground and the possibility of blizzards as well. Most of the showers for the north as well as the west. Now, further south, mainly a dry weather scene, the best of the brightness for eastern fringes. Not for long, though, because during the course of the day, that cloud piles up as the rain pushes across most of England and Wales, getting into the southeast by the end of the day. With temperatures tomorrow, the south displays the very best of the temperatures. 11 is 52 in Fahrenheit for the southeast and the Channel Islands. The further north you go, the chillier it gets. And of course, add on that rather blowy wind, and it could feel very cold indeed in northern parts. That's all from me. Here's tomorrow's summary.
PowerGen, generating electricity for homes and industry, whatever the weather.
And locally, remaining showers will soon push into the North Sea, with most parts becoming dry. As cloud breaks, temperatures will fall to around 1 Celsius, 34 Fahrenheit, with a ground frost and icy patches likely around dawn. It'll be a bright morning tomorrow, with spells of pleasant sunshine and a scattering of showers. During the afternoon, cloud will gradually spread from the southwest, with showers becoming more widespread, especially in South Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. Temperatures will reach 9 Celsius, 48 Fahrenheit, in a moderate southwesterly wind. So that's the forecast, and here's the summary for tomorrow.
Honeymoon
weekend's over, Frank. Business won't run itself.
I'm well aware of that, my darling. Tomorrow I shall be in the driving seat, in control.
Emmerdale, Tuesday at 7 on Yorkshire.
Now we enter the sometimes sacred world of flag design, made along the coast of Ghana.